Hello, welcome to Flower Juice. My name is John McDonald, and today we're going to look at how to create a floral arch. Now, a floral arch is a large installation that you're not going to do very often, and some people don't know how to approach this because they just don't have experience of it. So there's a few things you need to know, and we're going to cover these as we go through the video. The main thing is you need to get a structure. Now, if you're going to do this for a function or for a party or something, you might find that there's already a structure at the venue that is an obvious place that you can use. So there might already be an arch that already has materials growing on it. If that's the case, I would say make use of that rather than bringing a separate one. The other thing about an arch is they're not really movable, so it's very important to say that to a customer that once it's made, it's really not practical to move it at all from where it's going to be. So if they're going to use it for a ceremony, then it might just be left on its own afterwards, but it then becomes a place where people can go and get pictures taken as well. So it can have a couple of uses. So we've basically bought an arch that is just a simple arch. Now, if you buy the really, really cheap ones, they're just not strong enough. What you really want to do is get one that has a bit of a 3D kind of aspect to it, because that's going to give it much more strength. The other very important thing to know is to secure it to the ground. So whether you're going to peg it into the ground, or if it's on a floor like this, we can use blocks of concrete. If you're going to do this regularly, then you might want to drill holes that actually line up with the holes of the arch. That would be a really good thing. If it's going to be outside, then it's going to be much more open to the wind. So even if it's not particularly windy, it can really be at risk of a small gust. So making sure that you've got a strong frame and it's secured is really, really important before you start. The other thing as well is there's two different ways to approach doing an arch. You can have a very beautiful arch and you want to do highlights of flowers on it, or you can use your arch as a structure to create a very full, flamboyant creation, and that's really what we're going to do today. So today we're going to do one, and we're going to do it foam free. So what we've got is we've got some chicken wire in a pot, a tall vase that's nice and heavy. I've taken some plastic bottles and just cut them. So this is going to give us water sources onto the actual frame as well. In here, I've got basically a cage made of wire that is quite interesting. We might have a look at that in a later video. So essentially, we're foam free. Now, there's no reason why you can't use foam. I mean, foam, the problem with foam is it gives microplastics into the environment, so it's not ideal. But even if you reduce your foam use a little, then that's going to help the planet. So today we're going to do it without foam. So the first thing I need to do is really put water into all our dishes. So I've already pre-filled these ones a little bit, but I haven't done this one. If all your material is in water, then you really don't need to worry about it lasting. It can be made the day before. If it's going to be outside, then it's going to get much more risk of wind, and it's going to need a bit of protection. So you really need to check the weather as well. If you make quite a loose open style, then obviously that's going to catch the wind as well, compared to maybe more of a condensed, compact floral style. So we've got our arch, our framework set up. We've got our water sources. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to put some towels just round about. And in a way, it's better just to put down a big sheet, make a mess, and then do a big tidy up, rather than trying to constantly tidy up as you go, because you're just going to waste time. It's easier just to have the space, make the design, and then have a big tidy up. So the materials we've got is, I've looked for volume because we want this to be big and bumptious. I've picked a lot of ivy because I had that for free. I've also got some really beautiful asparagus fern. And this for me really gives a light, airy feel. It really looks romantic, and it's going to create a lot of volume into our design. We've also got just some greenery I had in the garden, but we're going to use some highlights like eucalyptus and pittosporum just to create a bit of contrast as well. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start by greening the arrangement, and then we'll move on to flowers. But this is going to take a little bit of time, so we will slip into like a higher speed. If you want to watch it a little bit slower, if you just go into your settings, you can change it to a slower speed and see what we're doing. So let's get started. So this first material is actually called silk tree. And as I say, with this, we're wanting to create a big impact, and using big branches like this is really going to help. And we're also going to make use of the frame itself to hold the material. So you can really use that frame to weave your materials in. So, as I said, the main thing we're going to have is ivy, and I found some really nice pieces. Like this one is just amazing. So this is really going to give us a lot of impact. And it's where to put it. So I think up and over, and then into our water. So on these higher pieces of water sources, what I've used is I've just used some scrunched up wire. And the scrunched up wire is just giving us a little bit more support in there as well. But you can really just weave your material into the frame. So I'm going to come up there in between it and round. Now, sometimes you'll be able to make this maybe the night before it's needed, and if that's the case, you won't necessarily need to worry so much about some of the materials that are better lasting. So for instance, like ivy, if it's got mature leaves, it's going to last really well. Just, even if it was out of water, is possibly okay. It depends what your temperature is like in the area that you're in. If it's very warm, I would say you really need everything to be in water. But you can see that this starts to come together. I don't want to weave it in too much, and then we start to lose a little bit of our shape. But I think what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to work on the greenery, and you can watch how that goes together. But really, I'm just going to add it in. And rather than concentrating on one particular area, we're going to be doing this as a whole. So it's worth stepping back, seeing what's needing done next, then going in and doing it. So don't just work on this bit. You might run out of materials for that bit. It's better to work as one whole design. So, right, let's go. Okay, what I've got is I've got some pampas grass that someone gave me from their garden. They went, oh, you could use that. And I just thought this would look great in here. We've seen it quite a lot in arrangements lately, and it really does add to a design. I think it just gives it more interest and it makes it quite exciting. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring in some flowers and start adding some flowers. Now for this we wanted this to be big and bold. So our main bold flower are going to be a few sunflowers. So I need to be kind of careful how I place these because I don't have a huge amount. But they are so cool. Now, sunflowers really like a lot of water. So if you're going to use sunflowers, please give them a really good drink before you use them. And make sure that they are in a water source and they're going to get good access to water. So now we've started to build up our arrangement. You can start to use some of your other flowers as support as well, or some of your foliage as support. You really want to just knit everything through. I quite like the paper covered wire as well. I think it's really good. So if you're adding a flower and you think, oh, this really needs a little bit more support, the paper covered wire is just perfect for adding that in. Now, one of the other things you probably want to keep in mind is that, is this going to be viewed from the side? It might not just be purely front facing. So if that's the case, do check how it's looking from the sides, because maybe all the people are going to enter from one side and you don't want it to look patchy. Now, to complement our yellow sunflowers, I've got a little bit of solidago, and we can just pop that in. So we're really wanting to create quite a loose, fresh feel for this. And I think that's a little bit fun. We see so many function flowers, especially for weddings, are just in whites and creams, which is nice, but think of a different colour scheme. It can be quite zingy. It can really make it much more eye-catching. And if you already have neutral colours everywhere else, then adding something like yellow is really going to make a highlight. So just to bring in a bit more yellow, I've got some beautiful gerbera, or should I say germinis, and we're going to build these in. Now, with using our water sources the way that we've done, it's not like foam where you can place a flower and it'll sit exactly where you want it. But for this kind of style where you want the whole thing to be loose and natural and less set in its way, then actually that works really, really well. Because these will go in, but they'll just sit in a slightly different way. And Like this flower here is sitting facing the wrong way, but we're just seeing another aspect of that flower, which is really interesting. And it looks more natural. We can put them in such a way that they even look like they're actually growing like a clump. Now, we do get asked quite regularly, do you wire or do anything to the gerberas to make them stronger or to make them sit better? To be honest, I personally don't. I find with gerberas, the less you damage the stem, the better they'll perform. So they just like to be in water and not damaged. Damage will create mold, and the mold or the bacteria that gets into the stem is going to be the thing that creates a problem. So what we've got now is we've got some beautiful yellow roses. Because when you think of an arch, you do think of roses. And this is really the difference here, where if we were using foam, we can go in any direction. But because we're using a water source that has to stand upright, the only way we can really stagger the flowers is to make some short like that, but they will essentially have to go upwards. But that's okay, because we've added a lot of other materials. It works. Now you could, of course, have a frame made that has the containers on it, and you could pre-make bunches that could go straight into the vases. But I think if you can, being able to sculpt the whole thing in situ is far better. If you start to pre-make things, yeah, it'll be quick, but they might not sit in quite the way you want. And we will take one or two roses behind. Like I'm looking, I can see up here, we need to get a little bit of colour back there. And we can even put in a nice longer one. So as I'm putting things in, I'm trying to recut them as well. Because it won't do them any harm. You're probably cutting them to get them to the length you want, but it's going to be better for the stems for taking up water. Now, I do want to just make sure that we've got one or two here that really face towards you. So I'm looking and I'm thinking, right, what does this need? We definitely need something up here. This is a nice rose. And we can just drop that in there. So that's bringing a little bit of colour there. And I think we need to bring some into the centre of these areas. Can't actually see. Yeah, that's good. So we've got our main feature flowers and our main feature colour, which are really, really good. This is really what you want with an arch. You want it quite full. You want basically any containers you've got to be out of sight, and you want it to be big and bold. And then it's really up to you how much volume you want to add. So essentially at the moment we've got green and yellow, but if we add a different colour like white or cream, it's going to change the appearance. So let's try that. I've got some beautiful lisianthus. And this is a lovely double one. So the great thing with lisianthus is it's got light stems, they're easily broken down. And it always gets a little bit of a name as being a filler flower, but it is just beautiful. And it's amazing the amount of people who actually think it is a rose, but it's not a rose. So then if you are going to add a secondary colour, like the white, what you need to do then is have a wee think about, do you want it to be half yellow, half white? Do you want it to be more white with a touch of yellow? You've got lots of options. And this applies to any colour scheme. You're the person in charge, and it's up to you how you want it to work. Now, just making sure that these are in water. Now, as well, they're quite brittle, so if you do break one, fix it or sort it out, because it's not going to be happy if you just leave it. With the lisianthus as well, you can get such beautiful versions now. You can get ones that really do look just like a wild flower, or you can go down the route of these big doubles. So they're big and blousy, lots of visual impact. So this is something we've been wanting to do for a good while, is make some big arrangements. And it's always been a problem with space. But we've done it. We've got the room to do this, so now we can do it. I really want to bring one up into back here. So we have to remember that an arch is really a three-dimensional thing. People are going to see it from the side, they're going to see it from the back, they're going to see it. So you are going to have to spend a little bit of time just sorting it out, checking it from different angles and making sure that you're happy with how it's looking. The thing is, you could do this all day. Let's see what else we have. I do have a little bit of babe's breath, but I think if we add some, we're just going to add the lightest touch. We definitely don't want to make this look heavy with gypsophila. I think gypsophila was really the victim of its own success. It was so popular and everyone just overused it, and it kind of spoiled it really. But just little touches add a highlight and take a little bit of light into the arrangement. Yeah, I'll have some up there. Now, I think if you were going to be doing this, you're going to obviously set yourself a reasonable time for working on it. You don't want to say, I'm going to make this and it's going to take me half an hour. The reality is, it's probably going to take you a good hour at least. And you want to take the right amount of time to do it well. There's no point in overshooting it and underestimating how much time it needs. I've just got one or two of these little green Santinis, and these are just going to add, again, a little highlight into our design. It just catches your eye and takes it in. But I think we're pretty good. What we really wanted to do today was just show you how to approach doing an arch. And also I was quite interested in doing one that would be foam free. So looking at our arrangement, we wanted to see that it's balanced, that everything is sitting right. I think this is sitting out a little bit too far, so we want to just bring that one in a little bit. So you just want to check that everything's good. Like I'm looking here, and I think we don't need that. And that's a little bit damaged, so that can come off. So, let's just shorten that. I really need a holster for my scissors, my secateurs. That would be a good idea. But I've actually got to that age where it's the glasses are the problem. You start off with them and then you end up wondering where they've gone. So we'll have a little tidy up and then we'll just have a little evaluation of how this arch has worked. Okay, so we've completed our arch. I think what we've done is we've made a really visually impactful sort of creation that would look great at any event or for any function. So the key points to remember is make sure that you've got a strong base or foundation for your design. It needs to be strong, and if you can do one that's three-dimensional, even better, because you're going to use this for tying your materials in and using it as a support. The other thing that's really, really important, make sure it's secured to the ground, because any gust of wind makes it at risk, or even from a person, if someone knocks into it, you want it to be quite secure. Now for this design today, we decided to go foam free. We've used a combination of chicken wire, we've used basically plastic bottles repurposed. We've also used just scrunched up wire into a few of them higher up as well. So basically everything's in a water source, which is really good. So that means that this could be made in advance. The other good way to approach this is to get your hands on a good amount of material that you can use to create a volume, and then you're going to need less flowers to actually decorate it with. So talking about flowers then, we went for the roses, the gerbera and the sunflowers, so it gave us a really good punchy colour combination. But we've created something that's interesting because we've got heavy elements like sunflowers, but we've got soft elements like this asparagus fern. So you're really wanting to create something that's a visual feast that's got lots of contrast. And just to keep it up to date and current, we've added some dried materials as well with the pampas grass. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, we'd love to hear your comments below. And I know that you're probably, someone's going to say, how much would this be? Well, it really depends where you are, and it really depends on your situation. So you might be able to buy flowers at a really good price, but you might be the type of person who can work very fast or work very slow. So it's really hard to give a price for a design like this. Ultimately, it depends on your situation. But we hope you've enjoyed today's design, and we've got new designs basically regularly every week, and we'd love you to join us for our next video. So until then, stay safe, let us know what you think of the arch, and we hope to see you soon.